I made this gameplay showcase of 3 very fun RTS games that forgo base building to focus on tactical combat in collaboration with their publisher Slitherine, and they have provided 5 game keys I will be giving away. Giveaway details and link are in the description below. I also want to make sure that you are aware that Slitherine will be revealing a totally new game on their stream starting at 6 PM set or 5 PM Greenwich Middle Time, link to which is in the description. They will also show new content for their other games and reveal the release date for Broken Arrow, whose recent multiplayer open beta reached nearly 500,000 players, and it is the first of 3 games I want to talk about during this video. I must admit, I didn't manage to play nearly as much as I wanted to during the multiple alphas and betas of Broken Arrow, but so far we have seen quite a bit of both its multiplayer and single player and could get a pretty good impression of its performance, gameplay and customization options. Since I do own a beefy PC, all I could tell you about the performance is that this is one of the rare games which makes all the fans on my GPU run very loudly, meaning that even a 4090 RTX is put through its paces running Broken Arrow. The system requirements on its Steam store page honestly feel low compared to what hardware it takes to both run this game with a high frame rate and high graphical settings on anything past 1080p. But since that is beginning to sound like first world problems, let's move on to something else that can equally impact the player's satisfaction with the game. The cheating. Yes, it was rampant, especially as the open beta was nearing its end. During the closed beta, when about 10 times fewer players were in the game, cheating wasn't really a big problem. But as the player base grew, so did occurrences of cheating in these PvP matches. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this subject as an open beta test isn't a full release and these developers have an opportunity to find a way to prevent this from happening in the future. At least I hope they have some very serious plans to deal with this problem. Because with 10 players in a 5v5 match, one bad apple is enough to ruin the balance of a match and destroy what can be a very fun experience for the other 9 players. And this game really is fun, at least I had a lot of fun in it and many other players whose feedback I read and saw did too. I do hope you will share your own thoughts about the beta in the comments and let me know how fun it was for you and how much did cheaters show up in your matches. Another thing that was rather annoying during the open beta was just how many matches were very one-sided due to one or more players getting disconnected from a match or leaving on their own during the preparation phase or after the first skirmish. There really wasn't any system that would allow players to stop a match in progress in which not enough players were present, so that is another thing I hope the developers will fix in the final version. It could be the ranking system will deal with these issues to some extent and that in the beta people just didn't care what happened to their rank when they quit mid-match. Now I know I started off the presentation of Broken Arrow gameplay with a bucket load of issues, but honestly if I didn't like it, I wouldn't care enough to spend my time talking about these problems. It is exactly because I want this game to succeed, and it obviously has a huge potential player base who want the same, that I am discussing these issues with you all here. One of the gameplay aspects that I really enjoyed was definitely the customization of each army and the individual units. This feels like the ultimate deck builder for a modern combat game, especially considering that both the USA and Russian factions have several different army specializations. During many of my multiplayer matches, I was on the receiving end of some insanely well organized teams and individual players who crafted such great armies and customized them to fit their favorite tactics. Nevertheless, even losing in Broken Arrow was a lot of fun, as long as it felt that there was no cheating going on by the enemy team. I'm going to show you some of the best moments from one of my matches where I got to try out dozens of different tactics and some worked better than others, to put it lightly. The way most matches in Broken Arrow start is how most wars start in real life, with a massive air superiority fight. And in this one, the enemy team brought more toys to the playdate than my team, even with me knowing what to expect and gearing up 3 fighters with air-to-air missiles. It was a one-sided fight. And a quick one at that. The opposing team put a lot of points into their fighters because they also put a lot of points into their helicopters and air transports, which is why they had to make sure to get air superiority from the start of the match. All ground anti-air vehicles are really not able to target these helicopters due to the extreme range and no scouting. With me sinking so many points into air units, I had to work with the most lightly armored and armed scouts to take over the capture points closest to my deployment point. This is a problem when you invest so much into air. There are almost no ground units you can use to capture points. This goes for me and the opposing players. One of my second wave fighters was able to harass the most forward enemy helicopters, and the map got divided by which side had the most ground vehicles to capture their objectives. Now this is when I switch from fighters to helicopters, and where you can watch how effective and problematic these can be when you send them on their own with no scouting. Scouting is really a key gameplay mechanic in Broken Arrow, and it requires a lot of coordination in a team. This attack helicopter is wasting its ammo on a fast enemy vehicle while it is on the road moving at top speed, and this is a really poor play on my side. This is exactly why you can click on weapons in the unit's UI bar and disable them so you don't waste them on incorrect targets like I just did. You can watch as low buildings and forests help this vehicle hide from the air attack right until the attack helicopter is on top of it. But quickly enough, it gets smashed by newly arrived short-range anti-air vehicles from my opponents. Recon units are perfect for going deep behind enemy lines and trying to cap their exposed and undefended capture points, but their speed comes at the price of no armor and low weapons. Meaning here, where I used 3 of them, it would have been better to stay low and not engage, capturing points and running away, but I lose them in a very short missile versus gunfight. Now here, I try to use a tactic I saw in previous matches of getting a lot of helicopters with defensive systems all together in a bunch and punching through enemy lines to their soft underbelly. Unfortunately, I get discovered by an enemy jet, shot at, and I rush in instead of pulling back. The amount of air-to-ground and air-to-air firepower these 4 helicopters carry is astounding, but limited in ammo. So when they do get a shot off and connect, they blow up units instantly. On the other hand, if you run into a lot of enemy anti-air units, like I do here, you start losing them one by one. In the end, that was a very bad and large investment in points. A similar thing happens as I switch to an armored vehicle strong force and drive like hell to the edges of the map to secure more points, only to be ambushed from a forest by a well-placed infantry unit. Again, a retreat would have been the best course of action, but I push on headless into what I hope are units that will soon run out of their anti-tank missiles. But I get struck by a drone as well, and my armored force is quickly eliminated, with me once again wasting a lot of points. Next up, I played a bit with long-range artillery, hoping to use missiles against enemy artillery positions. I found a few in a thick forest, targeted them, launched, followed the missiles, and then realized they got intercepted just before striking their target. That was such a letdown. But later on I found a new target, and this time I had more luck. Another missile found more targets in another forest, and the only thing that lacks here is confirmation from a scout. Now lastly, in this battle I really wanted to capture some footage of a massive bombing run made by a huge bomber aircraft, and the enemy provided me with a great opportunity as they had a bunch of infantry and anti-air units hidden in the forests at the edge of the map. There I carpet bombed them, but lost the bomber too, making this yet another bad investment in points. We did end up winning this match, but I can't claim to have contributed a lot to our victory. Feel free to share your own favorite moments from the beta in the comments below, and let's move on to the next game for this video. Starship Troopers Terran Command originally came out in 2022, and each year it got a new DLC published. I personally haven't played it nearly enough, and it is a fact I plan to change, especially now with the soon to be released Territory mode. This is going to be a free update that even lets players who don't own the DLCs use both human marines and alien bugs from the main game and the DLCs together in the new gameplay mode. The Territory mode introduces to the game capturable territory points. These points are going to be spread out across the map, and their capture nets you a new resource type. This resource you can then use to reinforce squads that have taken casualties and to unlock special technologies. You could almost say the developers are borrowing some gameplay aspects directly from Broken Arrow, and I honestly don't mind that at all. The most important part of the design for this update is to increase replayability of Starship Troopers Terran Command for both new and old players. Along with this extra gameplay mode, the developers have been working on improving the AI of the bugs to make sure they obey the rules of combat on the maps using the Territory mode. What this means is that the arachnids will quickly try to take any points you capture with a coordinated counterattack against any defenses you might have set up. Additionally, the more you expand your control, you end up just giving the bugs more points to attack your forces from. This is where all the types of turrets will come in handy and why you have to learn how to best place and use them. The endgame here is when you manage to find and destroy their hives, from which they will keep sending reinforcements until you do so. The developers have also given bugs more tactical options by letting them travel underground and attacking your backlines, just to make sure you feel the blood and sweat of your troopers working overtime not to be bug food. If you want to help the developers balance this mode and the new bug tactics, you can by joining the closed beta and giving them feedback on this new game mode. This is a similar approach they have taken with Terminator Dark Fate Defiance, which released this year but will get its first DLC right about now, as the 10th of December is the release date for the VR Legion DLC. It had its own closed beta with a lot of testers being invited to check out the content and balancing of the new units. The main content of this DLC is a new campaign that lets you play as the machines and follow the conflict from their point of view. Some characters make their reappearance in this campaign, while some locations are new, especially added for the Legion storyline. The units you will be commanding as you play through this campaign are some of the best the machines have in their arsenal, but you're also limited to what you can carry over from mission to mission by the capacity of your carrier. There are of course ways to earn points which let you call in support and reinforcements into each mission, and these are usually received after successfully completing side missions. What was great to see is that the new faction to play with comes with its own research and upgrade system for its units. This lets you play around with the design of the machine units as you move from mission to mission and battle to battle. In addition to seeing the story play out from the perspective of a different faction, there are going to be a lot of story elements that will depend on the other factions. So if you have already completed the original campaign, you will probably like to see and learn more of these human factions, which you can during this one. Now, as you probably know, this game has many available maps to play on in skirmish versus AI or in multiplayer, but this DLC won't be adding any new maps. The way the developers add such new maps is through tweaking the maps used for the campaign as free updates. This means many of the maps you can play in the campaign of the VR Legion DLC will eventually get into the map pool for skirmish and multiplayer. Let me just remind you to get into the giveaway for a game key of Starship Troopers Terran Command by using the link in the description of this video, and when you are done with that, you will want to check out the Slitherine stream for the release date of Broken Arrow, more news on new content for these and many other games they publish, as well as the totally new game they have been teasing us with. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!